Wow.
When you say shock to your brain, what do you mean?
What did the professor in the university do after this happened?
They have shut his lab down.
Wow.
There were other oversights on other projects that had occurred too, including failure to get consent from minors.
Sounds like pretty standard stuff. Like, I want to shock you. I don't want you to sign a consent form.
Yeah.
And then I don't care that you got injured.
Imagine being shocked with electricity so much that you can't sleep and you're starting to have memory loss. Except you're not a terrorist in a prison cell. You're a student in an American college. Let's find out this next caller's horror story.
What's the legal issue that you're calling us about that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I guess voluntarily worked at a research lab on campus, and through some safety oversights, I guess we could say, very long story short, I actually had, I ended up getting shocked to my brain.
Whoa.
And that interfered with some of the medications I was on, and then also as well just like caused emotional distress, and like, you know, it was a situation.
Wow.
When you say shock to your brain, what do you mean?
Okay, yeah, yeah. It was a neurostimulation lab. So they were looking at different stimulation techniques to get the brain to do different things, or to, I guess, get the brain to respond to different stimuli a certain way. So they were using an electrical current applied to my head, basically, to get parts of my brain to respond.
Okay, so was this like enough to power an iPod, a microwave, like
How would you measure it?
Like,
Yeah.
what kind of voltage? Yes, that's what I was thinking.
car
Like,
battery?
zap.
So it's been it's definitely not a car battery.
Okay.
I cannot remember the exact number. I think it was
Zap too much.
either 2 amps of current, milliamps. I don't remember the exact.
Can I ask a question? Did you know what milliamps were before the shock?
Could you have figured it out?
We're trying to set a baseline here. It's a lab thing. But okay, so you have the situation. Tell us the day that it happened.
I had a question there. 'Cause
Yeah,
you
jump
said
in.
you had there the volunteer work, like, because those are two very contradicting things. Like, did you volunteer, or were you paid for this? Is it like work, or did you volunteer to be shocked? Like, maybe explain, because that was a little confusing to me.
For sure. Undergraduates, I'm an undergraduate student, are not on payroll at any of these labs, but I was a part of the lab. I was on staff at the lab, but I wasn't getting paid for that. And how this kind of happened is, since I was working on other projects, my professor said that he wanted someone to just be a test subject to see if this was a viable thing that we could do with participants. And he was like, you work here, you do it. So I was like,
So
volunteering.
you were intentionally shocked. It wasn't an accidental shock.
What were they hoping to accomplish? Like, yeah,
Let her
that's
answer.
crazy.
Let her answer that. It was an
Yeah.
on-purpose shock.
Crazy.
Yes, it was.
And what were they testing? What were they trying to figure out? If that hurt?
No, because it didn't hurt other people. They were trying to see if this could help people with memory and healthy aging and whatnot, so that creating these currents in the brain would help trigger something.
So bullshit.
I was-
So
Yeah.
what side effects of getting shocked to your brain on purpose? What happened to you after that?
So I was on an SSRI prior to this. That completely stopped working. Emotional, psychological distress, obviously, because the shock that I experienced was significantly more powerful than anyone else had.
An SSRI is an antidepressant for people at home and me who Googled it to make sure.
Yeah. And that just completely stopped working. And then also I was like stressed, bit of trauma, reliving those experiences.
Let's
stuff
unpack
like
that. So your medication stopped working after you got shocked.
Yes, this particular thing, it's called trans-alternating current, stimulating current, TACS, was something that has been used on other people before. But since I was going to be a test subject for this new project, they never had me sign any consent form for this. So I wasn't like, I didn't know what was happening. Had I seen the consent form, I would have been able to say this would have impacted my meds, because TACS disrupts the serotonergic pathway which SSRIs work on.
Could you say that word before you were shocked?
Serotonin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a psychology major and I've taken neuroscience classes
Okay.
before. So.
But truly, this is a question that often happens when folks are looking at these kinds of cases, is to understand the delta between what
The
you
gap.
could do before.
Delta's a gap.
She's a psychology major. No,
The
I know you're saying
audience
it
at
for the
home.
audience.
I'm saying
I know,
it for the
giving you shit.
audience.
What is that gap between where you were and where you are now? That's everything that comes down to legal damages. Where were you and where are you now, and how bad is that, and what is the value of it? So what was the result? I mean, what did the professor do? What
Has
did
it
the
affected
university
your
do?
sleep, your ability to work, your ability to enjoy food, exercise? Like what have been the symptoms? And how long ago was this?
All right, we got 3 questions now. All right, you get the how long question's very good.
How long ago was this?
This happened in early December of this last year. So it's been about
6 months.
5, 6. Yeah.
So you're still a student there at the UT. Like, you haven't graduated yet. Like, you're still in this.
Yeah.
Your grades drop at all? Like, they stayed good grades? Any adjustment from the shocks to the brain lessening the grades?
My grades themselves remained steady, but that's because I had put in a tremendous amount of extra work to make sure they did.
Okay, but has it been harder to remember things? Has it been harder to learn things? Have you had sleep issues? What kind of issues have started since this event?
Yeah. So I think it definitely has been harder to learn things. I'm a lot faster to get headaches now. I was always someone who was prone to headaches, but they've gotten more regular and more intense to the point where it's hard to concentrate. So like sitting in class all day, I can't really do that anymore. Sleep definitely was disrupted at first, probably stress brought on by the whole thing itself. I right now it's less severe than it was before.
Let me get back to the question that I asked a little bit earlier, which is, what did the professor and the university do after this happened?
Yeah, so he called me the next day because he wasn't even in the lab when this happened. He was out of the state.
Convenient.
Sorry?
Convenient for him.
I know, right? He called me and he was like, "I'm glad you're okay." The person who was doing this to me with me took me to the emergency room. Wow. And he was like, "I'm glad that you're okay. I don't know if the emergency room is necessary," that kind of stuff. He offered to directly pay for my hospital bill instead of going through the university system.
And he was your professor?
Yes, he was the head of the lab. Yeah. And he was like, "I'm glad this happened to you instead of to a participant," was basically the message that I got. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot.
Wow. Hiring a lot of Aspergery, don't give a fuck professors over there. So are you even aware, has the university been notified that this occurred on campus in a program at the direction and monitoring and supervision of a professor?
Yes. So the research assistant who did this with me, and I went and talked to the institutional review board, who's in charge of all the ethical oversights of labs on campus and stuff. And they have shut his lab down. His projects have.
Okay.
There were other oversights on other projects that had occurred too, including failure to get consent from minors, parental consent for studies involving minors.
When you say minors, you mean
children
under 21, under 18? Where was the college? Prepubescent?
Specifically elementary, middle school age.
So real minors, yeah.
All right, we are deep into this nasty onion of problems.
I want to make sure I'm recapping this correctly. So the doctor, the professor, not a doctor, definitely not a doctor,
definitely,
maybe not even a professor. This guy shocked you, and when you got hurt, he was like, "I'm glad it wasn't a real person," and then he also had hurt a bunch of kids in the name of this research that got shut down.
So the kids were in a different project. I think it was just like dancing and music. Like, how does music affect kids' learning? So it wasn't anything shocking happening to them.
They weren't playing Drake.
Yeah. He failed to get their parental consent. And along with that, he also told me not to fill out an incident form to the university saying that this happened. So I actually went behind his back to alert the university that this happened.
This is, I can tell you, we have dealt with a lot of issues where folks kind of go, all right, I'm just going to go along with keeping it quiet.
Yeah.
And what is the rule we always say? If someone in charge says, let's keep this between us, don't keep it between us.
Don't.
Yeah, it is always a red flag, a glaring red flag. But okay, so now the university knows. Let's make sure that the folks following along at home understand kind of what we're looking for you today. What's the best way that we can be helpful in organizing or thinking through or next steps for you?
I guess it's just, so I have been told by several people that I have grounds to sue for various things. I don't have official documentation of the fact that, like, I actually did suffer afterwards, because the ER doctor said, you're fine, go home. And that's basically all that I've done. So everything else is just
you said your medication has stopped working. Have you talked to your provider who administers that medication about it?
Yes, I have.
And there would be doctor's notes about changes in your medication, in the efficacy, in the ability for it to work, or in the dosage of it?
Yes, we switched over to another medication.
I think the fact that you switched medication is a piece of evidence.
I mean, I would say right now what the thing is that people constantly do is you're not the best person to evaluate whether there is evidence or not.
Yeah.
We've had people call in and go, I don't have any evidence. And then they let us know that there were 6 eyewitnesses.
Yeah.
Like, well, there's nothing in documentation. That's evidence. And so here you need to talk to a personal injury lawyer, and you need to specifically, this is really critical for those people out there and for you as well, Buffy, is talk to a lawyer that understands these problems. Traumatic brain injury of all types are handled by lawyers who have particular experience in that area. You're good at car wrecks. Okay, breaking your ankle isn't the same as breaking your spine, isn't the same as getting shocked by your professor who fails to get consents with little kids, right? So they're very different things, and different laws apply in the university context, in the employment context. Yeah. I mean, this guy has a lasagna layer after layer of bullshit violations.
And there's an opportunity for you to get paid here, for you to get some justice here, but I think that shouldn't be your primary motivation. Based on what you're telling me right now, I think it makes sense for you to find a lawyer that can represent you here. And we're going to help you do that, by the way. But because there's probably more victims. Like I doubt that a person would be so callous as to shock you and then be like, oh, it wasn't a real person. I doubt that a person would play loose with consent forms for minors and then he does everything else by the book. Like, probably the deeper that you look into this, there's more people that have been hurt, there's more violations. So you want to get the proper you want to get the band together to go after it, to make sure the justice is for everybody, even the people that can't protect themselves.
I mean, and here's the other thing about traumatic brain injury is that it often doesn't show up in terms of symptoms and problems until later. It's a latent issue, which means it could pop up 6 months, a year from now. Folks who kind of get these cases resolved or give up on them too early, tales of 3 years later, symptoms start showing up and they've already given away their rights or they've already passed their time to do something. So, Judah, what do you think? I mean, this is
I would say
crazy.
Definitely a crazy story. I was wondering, like, what is the guy, maybe he's trying to run a study on, like, how many violations he could make before he gets caught or something.
I mean, he's got some great sample size here.
It's really, really high. But, yeah, I would definitely, consider some action here. It doesn't sound like they were very nice to you, getting you shocked like that.
Buffy, do you feel like you've gotten a little bit more kind of confirmation on what the next steps are?
Definitely, for sure.
Excellent.
And it's helpful that you mentioned someone in that particular area of brain injuries and whatnot instead of just like a general personal injury lawyer.
It's important. Those are kind of the things. Fortunately, you're not having to hire traumatic brain injury personal lawyers very often, which means kind of vetting that as a question. And folks at home are often having that problem as well. But we're going to get you some information about some folks that could be helpful on that front, some options for you to consider as you move forward on this. But first and foremost, I'm so sorry this happened from someone in a position of trust in your educational experience. And we're going to try and help you get to the right person who can let this move forward. But thank you for calling in today, Buffy.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. We make a lot of jokes on the show, but I found that behavior to be shocking.
I mean, I was surprised for a guy without kids that you could just rattle off dad jokes like nobody's business. Even Jude over here was like, I thought it was 3 guys who like to tell funnies, and then you got your electrocution jokes. But I mean, this was
Wow.
I really was actually like.
This sounds like a real case to me. I mean, like this it sounds like pretty standard stuff. Like, I want to shock you. I don't want you to sign a consent form.
Yeah.
And then I don't care that you got injured.
Okay,
like,
can we do an over/under bet?
Yeah.
This will be on a Law and Order or a fucking Grey's Anatomy episode or some other knockoff on TCM.
Those are premium. I'll take the under to make the. I mean, like a Hallmark thing. Yeah, sure. Or like TLC.
I'm
or
just saying
something.
to be on a show.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're like
On
we're
a
a
show?
college
Yeah.
professor does like some malpractice for fun.
I mean,
Well,
I guess
no. Here's why
shit's
I'm more actually going towards the over. This is that girl's experience. I'm gonna guess once you start getting into it, there's gonna be like, you know, a dog that they accidentally killed.
He's just like making
and
up different experiments.
yeah.
He's like, they never tried
Look,
that
let's
voltage.
be real.
trend.
If Larry Nassar got away with so much for so long before they finally, how many electrocuted college students will there be before this university does something?
I just like she was like, he thought I'll just increase the amp a little bit, you know, like bump it up a little. Let's see what that does. And
I bet you're gonna pull back on this, and it's gonna be like that professor had fake credentials, and there's liability with the school. Like they kind of
it seems like that they would have stepped in to get at least somebody sign this. Hey, can you
question everything, right? I mean,
get things in writing. Get things in writing
but
too.
let us not forget that this is a person who would, I think, in our sitting here right now would go, and I'm sure a lot of people at home are thinking the same thing. Absolutely, talk to a lawyer. And yet, a lot of folks who are not used to that mindset are thinking, well, I don't know, not realizing what they don't know. That this could become a big problem down the road. What's the harm in talking to a professional who has your interests at heart to understand whether or not this could be a problem down the road? Because it's true, people, they give up on their rights and they don't even know.
Yeah. What do you think something like this could be worth? That's
No
like
idea.
the question that
No idea.
everyone wants to know.
Pain and suffering, right?
Well, pain and suffering is pain and suffering. It's different for everyone. It's circumstantial. We would, need to talk a lot, but, a 7-figure case of electrocution, of changing the way that she lives her life.
Really? 7 figures?
It could be. Well, I'm saying, is it in the possibility?
Not a problem.
We don't have a lot of
Would a jury
but for
feel?
the people at home, I think the people at home, that's a comment that I'm seeing pop up. What's this worth? How much could it be? It's called the Barely Legal Show. We're not operating in our official capacity. Let's do it on like a slide, not $1, Bob, right? Like it's not gonna be
Oh, it's
Price
not
is Right rules,
Price is
yeah.
Right.
It's
The
not
lowest
Price is Right
closest
rules.
to-
On a scale of like, is this life-changing money? Is this, I feel like, I got justice, right? Or sadly, this is never going to be worth enough.
Can I tell you that none of those things are going to matter because everyone is happy at different amounts?
Yes.
So what's enough? Yeah.
What's enough?
I'm going to say this feels like at least a car worth of fucking up. I feel like someone fucked up more.
Way, I think way more.
You're gonna get a car. I'm setting the floor as a
what
car.
are we? A VW Golf? Are we talking a
I'm
Ferrari
talking a
Tesla?
small boat
This
on
is
the
a
lake.
small
Small
boat.
boat on the
Feels
lake.
like a
Not a
Is
big
it-
one.
Wait,
Not a
does
big
it have
one.
an engine or is it wind?
No, it's got an
powered?
engine. It's like because like it also depends. Is there going to be real physical damage of the brain? Right, like that's the
big
real.
part we don't
That's
know right now.
That's the one.
We're completely.
We don't know.
Like because that.
Oh my gosh, this guy with
That's
the
adding a
jugs.
zero. That's adding a zero for me for sure. Like if it's just like the stuff like
Thank
the
you.
real brain damage is like that's like a brain. Like I think you get a real number with that.
The guy with the PhD in funny, and I agree. Okay, he's the professional. I think given the likelihood of the scenario here and what this guy's probably doing to other people and her medication, I think those factors say that this is easily a 7-figure case. If those continue to pan out and are justified. There's a lot of information, people. I'm not just being a lawyer here. There's a lot of information that we don't know.
As it relates to our caller, I have not heard life-changing changes. Possibility of it, sure. I'm gonna say low 6 figures for our caller. However, I feel like the onion has so many layers to where we could see 7 figures
That's
of
what I'm saying.
liability on the school.
That's what I'm saying. This is a bad onion. In the middle is a professor who
It's like
shocks
there's
people.
like work. She's like, you got the university. Are you working? Are you not working? Are you volunteering? It's a
and let's not forget these kids who are taking advantage of. And so far, only the ones that we know about.
If you have a crazy legal story and you want to talk to some lawyers anonymously, for free, call us.
Wait, we're not getting paid?
Nothing at all. I don't know how we're going to pay for it, to be honest.